LCBN television broadcasts 24/7 on UK Freeview Channel 271, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, Apple TV, Google TV, See Love World, LCBNTV.com, LifeComTV.com.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Lydia. Today I'm going to be talking with a beautiful young lady, Nyasha. We're going to talk about her career in modeling. I know it's a career that a lot of young people, not only young girls or young boys, I don't want to say young boys, like ladies, young ladies and gentlemen think about. It's a bit like the music industry. So she's going to share about her journey, what her experience has been. So if you join me as we welcome her.
Hi, Pastor Lydia.
Hello. Hi. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Nyasha Matonhodze. I'm from Zimbabwe. I'm a Zimbabwean-born British model. I started modeling when I was 16 years old, and I'm 26 now, so 10 years of a modeling career. And yeah, I've spent my career trying to help other models and educate people about diversity and equality in the modeling industry.
So it's I think when I asked you to come on and I was trying to explain all the platforms he was going on, you said, "Oh, don't worry about that. It's not really important to me. I'm not about the publicity. I'm just about sharing what might be useful to another young Black person who wants to go on this journey." And sometimes we need pioneers. So I guess you're a bit of a pioneer in that industry, and having started so young.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Go on.
Yeah, my journey is quite. I've realized that there's not a lot of. It started off being like there's not a lot of Zimbabwean models. Then it was like there's not a lot of Black models in general. So I just felt like it's important that I share my story, because everybody says, "Oh, I want to be a model. It must be so nice." And people have seen the glamorous version or the America's Next Top Model version, which there's a part of that, but there's more to it than that. So I do want to share.
So you were born in Zimbabwe. When did you move to the UK?
I was born in Zimbabwe. I moved to England when I was 8 years old. So my mum, my mum, my brother, and my aunt moved here in 2002. And I was, just a normal kid living my normal life with no intention of being a model. I did not think that I would be a model, but I ended up going down this path, and my mum was the person that was like, "You can model." At 14, she said, "You should try it. You look like the models we see on TV." And I said, "Mum, I want to do it. I would love to do it." And we went to London, and we went to see all the agencies that we'd researched on the internet, and they all said yes, but I wanted to be with Elite, because Elite was the
go-to agency.
Yeah, on America's Next Top Model. So yeah, that's how my journey began. I was with Elite from 15. I got developed from 14, and I was the face of Louis Vuitton by 16. Yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like quite an easy journey. Mom just comes up with this. Yes, comes up with this idea. Sort of said, "You know what? I think you can do this. I can see that it will work for you." So are you really tall? I mean,
I'm 5'11". Yeah.
You're 5'11".
Yeah.
So what did Mom see that made her feel that this would be like a perfect thing for you to do?
She just saw height. My dad is 6'8". She saw I was really, really skinny when I was younger, even more skinnier than I am now. And she thought I could do it. She said, "You look as good as the girls on the TV, and I think you should try it." So yeah, she saw the potential that I didn't.
So, a 14-year-old goes from home, goes through all the agencies, but you decided that Elite was the one because you'd seen it on TV. And I think then actually Elite was everywhere. You know, we heard a lot about it on America's Next Top Model. And your career sort of took off quite quickly.
Yeah.
So what happens for this 16-year-old who is now in this big world of fashion?
Well,
so is it as exciting as we imagine it to be?
Yeah, I think I thought I knew what I was doing when I was 16. I thought I was much more, yeah, I don't know. Most 16-year-olds were like, we know everything. We know what we're doing. I can do this. So I was a lot more mature than most 16-year-olds, because moving to New York now in hindsight at 16 is not something that most 16-year-olds can handle. But at that age, I think, moving from Zimbabwe and just being able to adapt trained me to be able to adapt to anywhere I go. So it was challenging, At first it was very exciting because it's New York City, and I've always wanted to travel, and I just wanted to see what that was like. But then you're so far away from your family, and you're so young. You're just, at the time, you're like, I want to make my mum proud, I want to make my dad proud, I want to succeed and show them and look after my family and show them that they don't have to stress about me and that I'm responsible. So I focused a lot of my energy on making sure that I got all the jobs, I attended all castings on time, and that I was successful, because I wanted them to know that I was okay. But emotionally, it is taxing, because you're trying to be a strong, independent woman at 16, which it just doesn't make any sense because you're a child. But everybody around you was like, everyone around me, my agency at the time was called Marilyn, and it was very supportive. They were very good with me, but you just were taught not to complain. You didn't ask a lot of questions. You showed up to your job, which we call castings at the time. Then you got sent your schedule if you had the job. So you only found out if you had the job if you were sent the job via email. But if you didn't, they wouldn't call you to tell you that you haven't got the job. So there was a lot of dealing with rejection, because you weren't given the tools. There was no preparation for that side of modeling. When they developed you for the runway, they developed you for posing, but they never developed you for dealing with being the only black girl in the industry, or one of few, or being so young and trying to be in an adult environment, because it's a business at the end of the day. So my journey was exciting. I did very well very early. So I was on every single runway that you can think of at 16. All the brands apart from Chanel and Prada, I was doing all the shoots, and I was very successful at 16, but I was very tired, as you can imagine.
Yeah, I can imagine. When you said you moved from Zimbabwe at 8, I was immediately going to ask a question like, how was that for you, moving? And I know living in Africa where you're free, and then you're now in this country where you felt a bit it was different. Culturally, race. You are now in a society that you were the minority and everybody else was the majority. But I think you sort of answered that question by saying, actually, that experience I had. Anyway, if we can talk a bit about that. That experience I had helped me when I now had to do something different. I had to move to a big city. I had to work. So what you were saying is that helped you because you'd had this experience of moving to a different country. But you were driven, I think, by... What were you driven by? I know you talked about, you were driven about, of course,
my mum's a strong black woman who's done a lot for herself and her family, and she's sort of someone she is someone I admire. I want to be like, to be that strong, to be that independent. And so seeing that model, I was like, okay, I have to be strong and I have to be independent. So that was my drive when I was out there. At 16 years old, I was like, I'm gonna make sure that my mum doesn't have to worry about me, and make sure she doesn't ever hear that I'm in a club passed out on drugs, or ever feel like she has to stress about me, because I'm gonna make her proud, and she's gonna know that I care very much about her not worrying. I didn't want to add more pressure.
More to her.
Yeah, because I saw that she had a lot on her plate. So that was my drive, just to make my mother proud and my father proud. At the time, my father wasn't a fan of me modeling at all. He just
yeah, I was going to ask what was
he was
dad's
very
reaction.
worried. Yeah, very worried. My father did not want me to model. His exposure to modeling were page 3 models, so he thought my daughter's going to be taking off her clothes and I'm going to see her naked or some crazy stuff like that. And I was like, no, I get paid to wear clothes, so I keep my clothes on.
It's a different kind of modeling. Do you think that's what let me say Africa, or the developing world? So when we hear modeling or singing or being a musician, it sort of sets alarm bells. I think historically it's a little bit better now, because now we see a lot of artists make a lot of money. So maybe parents are a little bit more open to the idea. But I can imagine you were only like 14 and hearing his daughter is now going to be modeling, and the concept or the belief that was had then was that models are either loose, they were going to be naked, so how did you get Dad to think differently?
I was on a campaign for Louis Vuitton that changed his mentality completely. He understood. I was on, the runway with fully clothed. I think he just had to know that I wasn't going to be, naked in anything. My contract actually stated that I don't do nudity, and I wasn't doing, anything unclothed. So that actually helped me be a bit more tough about what my boundaries were as a model, even though at that age I didn't even know about boundaries. But I came into the industry with like, I'm not doing any nudity and I'm not doing anything with underwear, because I was taught my dad kind of put the fear of God in me. It was like, you can't be seen, and I wanted to drive that. And I think also my dad, like African, my mum was a pioneer in her own right, because she was one of few parents that were like, you can leave school and not be a lawyer, not be a doctor, and those kinds of pressures. And I really want to emphasize that the creative industry is a place where people can make a lot of money, but Africa's education on creativity is not just rapping, it's not just being an actor, it's not just we're so restricted on knowing how to monetize creativity. And that's also part of something that drives me, because as I've been exposed to mainly creativity, I know that there are so many talented people that don't necessarily model, but they know how to work with clothes, like just stylists. They don't even design clothes, they just know how to match clothes together, and that's a space for somebody that's got an eye for that. So it's important that people know that we've got photographers, we have stylists, we have people that find models. So there's so many different roles that I would like to educate people on, and say, like, if you see your son has an eye for modeling or the fashion industry or the acting industry, don't tell your son or daughter to just focus on school. Maybe help them try and support them as much as you can, because I'm very fortunate to have had a mum that wasn't saying, you can't do that, you have to finish school, because I don't know where I would be today
if you had gone that route.
And I'm not saying no school, I'm saying you could do both.
Because that was going to be my next question.
Don't leave school, don't make the mistake I did.
So I guess what we're saying is, please don't leave school, but even in developing academia, let the parents also focus on allowing the children to develop these creative aspects that are not necessarily, I think previously if you'd said to an African parent you want to be a recording artist, you want to be a music artist, they would probably have fainted and called a family meeting. But now they see that actually it makes money. So I think now any parent who's got a child who can sing a little and is exhibiting this wish, they would fully support. But what you're saying is that it's not only about music, it's not only about rapping. There are loads of other things that we can actually help the younger people develop. So modeling is an example, being a stylist, being a photographer, being a hairdresser. I mean, look at Pat McGrath with makeup.
Right. Yeah. She's taking it to a whole nother, no one ever imagined that you could go places like that. But now we see, we've got Edward Enningfield, a black Vogue editor. Vogue, British. Can you imagine? I think having examples like that shows you how far your son or daughter can go. But I'm sure if he was in Africa and he was putting clothes on models, people would go, "What's wrong with him? Is everything okay?" And he wouldn't flourish as he has. But he was in an environment where he had to push against the pressures of his peers and just do what he felt he knew to do. And I think those things it's hard for black creatives, and because we're not many, so it is hard because our families don't understand what it is we're doing, and because they don't understand, they don't support it, because they know what they think. It's either you're gay if you do hair. There's so many hairdressers in the fashion industry that are married, have girlfriends, or you're gay if you do makeup. I'm like, there's so many makeup artists that are straight, and they're all from the Western world. So if you just, I think
open their minds.
We can't it can't be about gender. It has to be about what your son or daughter is passionate about, and rather than restricting them based on, that's too girly or that doesn't matter if they can make money out of it. There's people with $1 million businessmen that are straight with wives that have $1 million business doing hair. So you've got to I think I try to encourage my peers, like Africa, to open its mind. Like, we've got South Africa, it has a lot of fashion week. We've got Ghana now, Lagos. People are really putting a lot of money into fashion because it is a $1 billion business. So it's something that you have to consider, and I think people will become more and more knowledgeable. But I feel I have to tell, having sat with friends of mine that didn't have the support, black friends of mine that didn't have the support of their family, it's a tough, you're alone, and we're so young. So I don't want any other black model. We form communities amongst each other because they don't have the necessarily a person like my mother that's like, okay, I encourage you to go out there, I encourage you to be creative. They're getting a hard time because you don't make money right away. I was fortunate to make money a year. I mean, in any job, if you don't make money after a few months, it's not working.
That's the wrong job for you.
Yeah, my mum put so much money into me modeling before I could even, I would say I started making money after a year. And that's when it doesn't pay off right away. So you have to invest into your children. You have to know that it's not going to be flourishing. It may take some time before your kids or the person that are interested in doing this will make money. And it's who so you have to be out there traveling and opening yourself up to opportunity. If you see your son is a good tailor, you have to invest in them moving to a city that accommodates those things. And if it's not possible, there's scholarships in schools that allow you to have those opportunities.
To develop.
Yeah.
So how did you manage school and modeling?
So I stopped. This is what not to do. This is
the lesson now. Everybody listen.
So I stopped school when I did my GCSEs. I did not like school. I wanted, the moment I realized that I could be a model, I just focused all my energy on doing that and didn't focus on school at all. But what that meant was I didn't have a backup plan, or I didn't have something that brought stability, because what they don't tell you about modeling is you could be up one time and you could go down just the same. Like it's not a stagnant line of sustaining. It's up and down and up and down. So some months you're making money, some months you're not. And if you don't have education and you don't have a backup that can keep you feeling stable and another form of income, then you have a lot of pressure. So I think for me, I made the mistake of leaving school. My dad would say against his advice, because he said finish school first. I finished my GCSEs, but I think my dad was like, go to college. And I think my advice now as an older person is finish college, even university. Modeling can happen at any time. If you've got the requirements and you look like a model, you could be 24 and still be modeling, because I'm 26 and I'm still modeling. So don't put so much pressure on age, because those things, if you're good at what you do, and if you apply, if you're determined, if you're consistent, you'll be all right. But I think I felt like this is a once in a million opportunity. So if I don't, which may be right, but I think honestly, having been in the industry, I know 30-year-olds and I know 26-year-olds that are the same age as me that are more successful now than they were back then, and have even started a career at like 24, whereas back then it was, oh no, you have to be 14, 15, 16. But no, that's it. So don't leave school, finish school so you have a backup plan. And it's important as a model to not just depend on, you can do, but it's a very what's the word, unstable. It's not
unstable. I think this is the push for maybe developing worlds, for the children to be educated, because it's so important for education because that's the only way that maybe somebody who is from an impoverished background can get a better job. So the goal is get educated, because this is what will feed you long term. But I guess that we always hear things like, if you want to be a model, start at 14. That's the only time to start. So all those sort of contradicting evidence that we have is what you're saying, that actually it's not important. What might be important is staying in school, maybe modeling along the way, but make sure that you stay at least in school to get a good or a decent level of
and I should
education.
emphasize self-esteem and confidence at 14, 15, 16. If your self-esteem and confidence is high and you don't feel like somebody that would take they look at your image and you're judged on how you look. It's a business. They're not looking at you. It's not personal. A lot of the time, they're just looking on whether they can sell the brand using your image. And that's all they look at a lot of the time. Or if you can fit in the clothes, or, if the clothes match with what they're, your hair, everything. So if you are somebody at 14, 15 that has good self-esteem and good confidence and can separate the rejection and that personal part and see it as business, then because I think as women we have pressure on our image already. So I always say to young models coming in, never take it personally, because this is something, I was reading up on it, and it's like 72% of models have eating disorders, and this is because the models started at a young age, pre-adolescent. So your body hasn't filled up. You're not a woman yet. You're still young. So I actually think the industry is evolving to actually go towards more mature, 18 and above, because at 14 your body's still developing. And as a young girl, I was so slim when I was 14, and then when I was 16, by the time I got to 16, I started to fill up more. And I think I'm very defensive for young girls, because I know how hard it can be if your body changes, and the pressure of being a high fashion model says, okay, you have to be a size 6, and you're somebody that isn't self-aware and self-confident, that could take a toll. It took a toll on my mental health. I had very bad self-image. I had very bad self-esteem, and I didn't have any confidence because of it. And I internalized a lot of the critics, which if you're older at 26 now, if somebody has a comment about the shape of my body, I'm not going to, it doesn't bother me. I built my confidence and I've built my self-esteem. So there's a lot of required emotionally as a girl to become a supermodel. You can't just think, oh, I'm going to travel the world like I did, and I'm going to get lots of jobs, and I'm going to be the face of this. You've got to think it's a business. I have to take care of my finances, because you're not just a model. You're a business. You're self-employed. So these are things that you have to look at as well as a model. You have to look at your business. You have to look at yourself as a brand, and you can't just think about the golden tickets of it and the beauty of it. You've got to think of, as a businesswoman, what do I need to do to ensure that if I have a rainy day, let's say, what should I invest in? How can I keep my money in great places so they're flourishing even when I'm not working? Because you have stints, sometimes the market is just not. When I was starting, the other challenge were black models were just not in. It was a trend to have black models. It wasn't a positive, it didn't feel like it was positively reinforced. It was more like, oh, we need to quiet the noise of bad press, so we should have a black model, and that takes a toll on your self-esteem. Being a black African in that Western racist just bad environment where people are so narrow-minded about what being around black people is like. As a young girl, if you're not self-confident and you're not strong and you don't have a strong foundation to carry you through those struggles, you may not survive. So you have to consider those things as well.
So how did a 16-year-old navigate quite difficult terrain, because you were away from home? Mom didn't go with you? Mom couldn't go with you?
No, she stayed. Okay. She stayed here and worked. Yeah, she had to look after my brother as well, so she had other responsibilities.
So she had other responsibilities.
Yeah.
And New York is like a crazy city, even for an adult. And then this young lady, I imagine, of course, being ferried from job to job, but you were technically a child, a minor.
Yeah.
So how did you survive that time of isolation? And I'm sure there were moments where you were like really excited, and then moments that you must have been like overwhelmed or full of anxiety. How did you manage that?
It was tough. It started off being quite, you're so filled with adrenaline and joy because you're just so grateful. I came from
living the dream, right?
Yes. So in your head, you're like, this is amazing. Like, I can't believe I'm here. And you almost think, God, why did you put me in this position? Why am I the one that's here? Like, all it is like a genetic lottery. You didn't have to go to school. You just look great, and people decided to choose you because you look good. And in your head, you're like, I can't believe this is happening to me. So you're just in that moment and just enjoying and having gratitude to start with. And then the real you start to see what it actually means. So what being on set means, what being a professional model means. And it means showing up on time. It means being rejected. It also means being accepted. It means being analyzed for how you look all the time. It means your hair being changed, your makeup being changed, maybe every other day. And there's a lot of things that come with that. So as a young girl, I think, do you know what, I think it was God, because I really don't know how to be honest, I have no idea how I made it, but
how you survived it.
Yeah, it was a lot of emotional stress for me at 16. My story was tough, and I think it took me a long time to start to open up about some of the struggles I was having. I started to struggle with my weight at at 17, and it was the peak of my career, and I was in a bad mental state, and I didn't talk to anybody about it, and it led me to walking away from the industry because of that. You know, it led me to end up just saying I don't want to do this, because it was so much pressure as a teenager. Some of the pressures I faced was from the agency. So let's say, like, I was, you know, like I said, at 16 I'd done the Louis Vuitton cover, the Love magazine cover, British Vogue cover, Versace runway, you know, Burberry, everything, you name it. So my agency are looking at me like, oh my God, she's a superstar, and here I am feeling very unhappy and missing home and self-conscious, because I'm constantly being judged by how I look. I'm gaining weight. I'm struggling with my body image. I'm struggling with my self-esteem. I don't feel like I fit in with these people because I'm not necessarily somebody that's used to this environment. So I had a great deal of imposter syndrome, which I learned the definition of only recently, and I was like, oh my gosh, I think I had that, because I couldn't understand why I was here. And I couldn't accept. I kept on thinking people are going to go, oh my God, why is she? How is she?
How is she here?
How is she?
How did she get here?
Yeah, and I felt like I really deeply felt that, and it caused me to have massive anxiety, and I had panic attacks when going to sleep. It's been a tough journey from 16 to 26, where I feel like my mental health has been something I've cherished now more than ever, because the anxiety that comes with not speaking out about the things that are troubling you at such a young age, and facing so much so quickly, because it's a hamster wheel. You have to, everybody wants a piece of you because you're doing so well. And if you're not in a good headspace, and if you're not talking about what it is that's bothering you, all of it will be bottled up until you explode, and you do what I did, which is just run. Everything was so overwhelming. I was, you know, to others, I was in a best situation. So imagine you're having this chaos in your brain. Everybody else is telling you how wonderful this is and how amazing things are going for you, how incredible this opportunity is, and you're miserable. You can't tell anybody because everyone is just so excited for you, and yet you're unhappy. So it was very hard to find a place where I could talk about, you know, yes, it looks glamorous, but I'm tired. I'm working 14 hours, traveling to 3 countries in one, not even seeing the countries. People see you traveling and they think, oh, you know, you're living the glamorous life. But you don't get to see. If you see models traveling, all that, most of the time we don't even get to see where we've traveled. We see the hotel, we see the studio, and we see the plane. So there's a lot of mental challenges that come with that people don't speak about. And I think mental health is something now that I speak about as for Black models, because our challenges are even more, because even when you're on set, you don't feel appreciated. You know that, you know, I sometimes felt like sometimes you had people that really appreciated, you know, you as a human being, but a lot of the time it was tokenism, and it was
that's what I was going to ask.
So
let's just explain what tokenism is. That means they just add a Black person at the end, just to say that we have a Black person, not that the person they feel has value or is important. It just looks good. So being the token Black person in the lineup or in the shoot. So all of these, and of course people, things like names, cultural norms, and I'm sure a lot of racist remarks I just made without expecting it, you know,
they don't know
hurt anybody, because they don't know.
So you had agencies telling you that they weren't doing Black girls that season. This is something I repeat in a lot of interviews, because I don't think people understand what that. I want people to understand what that does to a Black girl in the industry. Be told they're not doing they're not doing hats this
So
season.
it's like orange,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
we don't have the color red this season. So
yeah,
the
just
color
like
of a
that.
black girl is not
Yeah.
working this. Yeah. And
So
how that really eats into, you know, the person. Then who am I?
Right, exactly. So these are some of the things that you're fighting against as a black model. And these are things that were normalized. You know, your agency didn't see anything wrong in it at all. They thought.
So you had to be grateful anyway, because you were taken as the token black girl. So be grateful that we made space for you.
Yeah, but you know, it was conflicting. I get very emotional about it because it was one of those things where you are looking around and you're like, oh, you know, at least I'm here, but I can't be friendly with my other black models because I know that if I walk into a room with that black girl, I'm competing. It was almost like we're pitted against each other. And as somebody that doesn't have a competitive bone in my body, I just want everyone to be together. It was a struggle for me because, you know, other black models would be competitive and would feel like they can't talk to you or they can't reach out to you. They can't talk because of this. Because if we were to be seen, we know they're going to go, which should we choose? You know, if we
so it's going to be an eeny miny.
Yeah. So it just, you know, it was shown in how agencies were run. So if they could have 18 white models that had blonde hair, blue eyes, and looked the same, but they could only have one black model that looked the way they looked. They had to have, if I had long hair, another black model had to have short hair. If I was this tone, another black model had to have a different tone. They didn't allow room for everybody of different, to have more than, you know, somebody that looked like
one black person.
Yeah,
okay,
it
so
had to be different.
What you're describing now, so was there a lot of colorism? So were the lighter skinned models?
It was racism. It couldn't. I don't want to say colorism because that would make it lighter. I think it was colorism, racism, ignorance, you name it. I just think people had a impression that, you know, we'll repeat the cycle of Naomi's and Tyra's and Grace Jones's, but we won't go outside of that because, you know, we saw that made money and we saw that was successful. So it was business minded, but if you have a bunch of people that look the same, then they think the same. So it's not until now where they've recruited people of different cultures and different even Asian models are going through the same thing. It wasn't just black models, any minorities would struggle with this. So these are things I would talk to models about. You know, in 2011 and even now, you know, we've got more percent, like 35% of black models, 35% in comparison to the, you know, 80% of white models that are on the run.
When we have the token, as you say, the man or
so we're trying to work and raise awareness. I'm trying to raise awareness of these things so another black model can come in and not think, oh gosh, I'm the only one here. And what does this mean? Does this mean I'm not going to
Because if all the photographers are white, the stylist is white, the hairdresser is white, the makeup artist is white, and this black person walks into the room, they're just like going to,
what's happening?
Yeah, what's happening?
The makeup and the hair doesn't even know how to do black girl. So these are things
I have friends who are models who they do their own makeup, they do their own hair, because there wasn't, you know, the makeup was completely wrong, or the hairdresser didn't know what to do with the hair.
Yeah, and can you imagine? This is 2020. This is 2021. We're talking after Barack has been president. We're talking about so many monumental things, and we're still having these challenges.
We still have those, So it's tough mentally. People have to be prepared. A lot of rejection, which is what you were saying, that it's not a personal thing. It's what goes with the terrain. So so to be prepared for that, to also look at it, you know, I think when we hear people are models or artists, we think it's a fun thing. Yeah. So you're saying there isn't that much fun in it, but look ahead and treat it like a proper employment. So take something to save, think of how to develop yourself, because your career, we always hear these things like footballers, that there is a lifespan attached to modeling. Is that true?
There is and there isn't, because you've got Naomi Campbell, who's 50
Stayed
now?
on. Yeah,
Right,
I think
so
she's more
there's
than
an
50.
element of fear that is inflicted on people about age in the industry, which I understand, because the youth is what's more attractive has been the poster child of beauty. But the truth is, there's different categories of model. People who only focus on the ones they see on the runway and high fashion model, but you can be a commercial model, the ones that do Colgate, Nivea. I just did a Nivea campaign. That's commercial beauty. There's so many different categories of model. There's even hand models where you don't even have to show your face. There's fit models where the designers use the model as a way to measure the garments and see how they're going to fit on the runway. That's another stream of income. There's so many different facets to models. There's swim models that do just lingerie, and that's what they do their whole career. So there's so many plus size models. I don't want to leave anything out, but there's so many. If you're just because you're doing runway doesn't mean you have to stick in that lane and just do that. There's mature models. There's an agency just for women over the age of 40.
So I can start a career.
You can literally start a career. And I'm not even laughing about it, because you're beautiful and you can. And I could hear about you in a commercial tomorrow and be like, oh my gosh. So it's limitless. It's limitless. But people have this impression, because of what we see in the media, that it's the best, the high fashion models are the ones that are given the platforms which is very true. That's the highest form in the hierarchy. However, there's still a lot of money to be made in the other categories. There's still a lot of money. And so yeah, I do encourage people to think about from it. It is fun, don't get me wrong. Any category of it is fun. And I had a great time, but it is a business at the end of the day, and you are the business. You yourself are your business. So if you're not functioning accordingly and not taking care of yourself, or not making sure that you're well and there and present, then your business is now jeopardized. So you have to ensure that this is your business, and you have to ensure that you are happy, healthy, and focused on being a great businesswoman or businessman. Yeah.
Because if you're not happy in your mind, you're not happy in your body, you're not happy, and of course looking after yourself physically. Yes. So was there a time you thought, I can't do this anymore? I
did up? Yeah, I walked away. So I at the age of, I think, 19, quit modeling entirely. Just was completely depleted mentally and emotionally from what I'd faced. And I kind of had a bit of shame and guilt around that, because everybody expects you to, only the strong survive is a motto that I've heard so many times.
In some way you felt you'd failed?
Yeah, I really did. And it's only taken me this long to go, no, you didn't fail. You just didn't want to put up with the it was either that or I was going to lose my sanity. So I chose myself. I chose to keep myself sane rather than losing my mind in the space where I had to adapt to colorism, racism, discrimination, and yes, lots of money. Don't get me wrong, I was very successful. I made a lot of money, but I was miserable, so I had to make that choice. And I've come back now, so it's a turn of events. And I think because I've been around for so long, although I left, I also was like looking at other things to do within the industry. I actually left, funny story, I left to do something completely, like I became a personal trainer when I left. And I shocked myself, because I went from, earning 1,000 a day to I think it maybe was like £11 an hour, which is the average. Yeah, which is the average earning for most people. And people could not believe that I would go from, I got so much backlash for choosing to, to do that.
Because, to choose yourself.
Yeah, and I gave myself a lot of backlash for choosing myself, because I was like, how can you not want to be in a financially stable place? But then I always told myself, at what cost? So now coming back to it, I teach speaking up, because the reason why I almost closely lost my mind was because I didn't talk about the issues that I'm talking about now, and boundaries. Like, you can say no as a model, you can say what you want to your agent, because it felt like that you worked for them rather than they worked with you. So it's a collaboration. And I think I tell models all the time, you're working with them. They need you to make money as much as you need them to make money. It's a partnership.
It's a partnership. They're not employing you. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're earning a lot of money, you're an asset. You yourself are doing the best you can to further your career. And if you're doing it well, that means you're forming boundaries, you're forming connections with people that support you and are for what you are for. So the only way to succeed is to talk about what direction you want to go. Tell your agent, if you don't want to do runway, tell them you want to do commercial. If you don't want to do commercial, ask them for what you want. Demand what you want. Hear if the team agrees and wants the same thing you do. If they don't want the same thing you do, you have the choice as a model to move to an agency that does want what you want. And I think people think, oh no, if I get to a place where I don't want the same thing as my agency and I lose my agency, I don't have that opportunity anymore. You do. These are the things that I didn't realize younger. I didn't want to do high fashion anymore, and rather than making a pivot and going to commercial where I wanted to go, where I didn't have the weight pressures and I didn't have the stresses of fashion week, I left, and I could have just changed my route,
changed direction,
and
within the same industry,
and still been successful. So it's knowledge, it's power. Knowledge is power. And also, I'm so grateful I took that break, because it made me appreciate some of the positive, because I was so overwhelmed by the negative. I really wanted nothing to do with it, because I just saw so many people struggling. No one seemed as happy as it looked. Maybe because I was in that negative space, so I was more attracting the negativity. So you want to be in a positive space and in these environments, so you attract positivity. Because when you're negative, you just see people struggling, and it exacerbates your feelings, and it just perpetuates all the things that you don't want. So I tell people to have good self-esteem, to have great awareness of what they want in this space, this creative space, whether you're a stylist, an agent, whatever you choose to be. Just understand that you are supposed to be there, because that's important. Don't have imposter syndrome.
I'm going to ask this question now. I was actually going to say, when you decided to give it up, what did Mom say? Were they saying, just come home, or are you crazy?
She was that, and also, are you crazy? She was both, because a mother knows. Her intuition was strong. I kind of avoided coming to her. In fact, I stayed in New York hiding, because I didn't want her to worry, but I think it worried her more. And I could hear her going, come home, because she could hear that I wasn't doing well. And so when I eventually came home, I was just in a very bad mental state. I was not doing well at all. And my mum was on one hand going, are you crazy? On the other hand going, what can I do to help as a mother? Because she just could see that I was not doing well. She was like, why don't you just go back to school and try something else? And I said, Mum, I never was good at academics. My strength is in helping people and service. And she was like, okay, think about what you want. And for so long I was like, I don't know what I want. But I love modeling, and it was like breaking up with a boyfriend. I say it like that. Like you love the person you're in, and then you
But
realize,
not the relationship that
but
you
not
have with
the.
the
You
person.
love the idea. I loved the idea of what I thought I was getting, only to find that what I got wasn't, the person I wanted. Does that, or the thing that I wanted? So
Yeah.
I felt like I was manipulated and misled, but really, all I had to do in that relationship was say, you know what, this isn't
To
for
put
me.
the boundaries down, which is
I
what you
need a
said.
new, yeah. So
But when you talk about that, somebody listening might think, okay, it was all right for her. She already had money in the bank. I'm just a struggling me. I just need a breakthrough. When I get the breakthrough, then I put the barriers down. Then I would say, this is what I want. So, is there a way, that person can, do what you sort of advise? Look at what you really want to be firm in what your needs are. Make sure that you're confident. Know that if they want you to model for them, they believe that you're an asset and you're going to make the campaign go further. They're going to make much more money than the model will ever make. But as I said, if somebody doesn't have the money in the bank, or they haven't had their break at all, does it make a difference, or can they
yeah, so
sort
let me
of be
share
led?
more of my story, because I think this might help. I lost all my money. I didn't have anything to my name. So after all that success, I lost everything. I had the assets that my mum had accumulated, because you have to remember I was 16 years old, and those assets were not liquid cash. It was investment. So my mum got a house. I had bought land for a school. I had to stop those projects that I was passionate about because I didn't have any more money. So the thing that carried me, which is helping other people, I couldn't do anymore because I put myself in a position where I didn't have it anymore. But then had to claw myself out of that predicament. Because as a young girl that's made a lot of money, I was naive. I didn't know that money made the world go round and I needed it. Because at that age, I was like, oh, this is going to last forever. I didn't know the value of money. And so at 22, I had nothing. Started from zero. I wasn't with Elite anymore. My career wasn't where it was anymore. I had to start from ground zero. I had to start as though I'd never ever had that, big agency behind me. I started with a more diverse, more understanding model, more ethically friendly modeling agency. And they didn't make me as much money. I made money, but I wasn't making as much money as I was then. I went from earning, I could earn 10,000 a day to working for 300 a day. That's to most people, but I was humble because
So that's the key.
I was humble by the experience, because knowledge, again, if you don't have perspective, you don't know. So I had to gain some perspective, and this is the part of my journey. So to anyone that looks at it and goes, oh, well, you had money, well, by the end of it, I had money for about 2 years. By the end of it, I had nothing. For 4 years I had no money. For 4 years.
So what made you go back? What made you sort of turn around?
Well, I actually had an agency. So the agency I joined, Milk Models, was a very, very good agency. They didn't make me a lot of money, but they were so good ethically. They had plus size models. They had all kinds of models. The lady that started it was a plus size model herself, but they also had like a fashion, like, a high fashion
High-end fashion.
Yeah. So obviously, because I wasn't plus size, so, but I needed to restore that trust in the industry again. I needed to restore that relationship, because I always loved what I did, but I just didn't know how to do it how I wanted to and what would be healthy for me. But that takes sacrifice. So at a young age, I got given things quite easily. At an older age, I had to fight for what I wanted. So I learned, which is the question that you're asking me. Okay, so how do I start from nothing? Well, you have to work. I know people say it's so cliche. You have to read, research, find people that are in the same path as you, that are trying to go to the same place. So the people around me that I was surrounded by were people also that were trying to make it. So I went from being somebody that was, you know, on Vogue covers to no one knowing, no one caring, no one paying attention anymore. No one cared about what I was doing. So I was still in that environment, and knowing that my status and where I was, God, if this happens, fine. If it doesn't, I'm happy where I'm at, because I'm doing it my way, and I'm doing it the way that makes me happy. And maybe I can say that because I had my mother who was there to push me, and was, I knew that I could, you know, I knew that I could come home. And I think it's different for,
so there was somewhere to go back to.
Yeah, but if you don't have that, support system, and you don't have any place to go, and the only way to go is up, you have a different fight, you have a different hunger. So I can't speak to people that I can't speak for people that had to go through having absolutely nothing, because I had somebody that if I when I didn't have money, when I was struggling, I came home and my mum took care of me, and she made sure I was okay. But I don't know what would have happened if I didn't have that. Yeah.
Okay. What would be, I know we've talked about being confident, knowing what you want, and actually looking properly into the industry and making a decision which path you want to go. So what would be, I don't even want to say advice, because I think the whole whole time you've been here is about giving everybody who wants to join the creative industry, not only modeling, the sort of heads up, the things to be aware of, knowing that you are the brand, knowing how to look after yourself, knowing where to set boundaries, knowing when to make demands, knowing, you know, it's a business, knowing to save, all those really important things. So what would you leave behind as like for our close today?
Okay, perfect. Know what you want. So obviously the fact that the anthem in this was like, know what kind of model you want to be, so you can find the people that can support you to be that model. And then once you make the money, make sure you have an accountant. Second thing, make sure you have a lawyer. And obviously this sounds like all very expensive things, but if you're you wait until you're earning a bit more money and you've paid off the debt that you owe your agency. So yeah, make sure you have people that can support you in decisions that you're going to make for your future, because trusting just your agency, sometimes they have their own interests at heart. So you have to have people around you that have only your interests at heart. So that be your lawyer, that be your accountant. Those are people that are going to help you financially and advise you on moving forward. There's also wealth managers available that you can call. If you go on the internet, you can find places, people that can give you wealth advice. And if you don't need a lawyer, don't get a lawyer. Don't just because I told you to. It may not even be necessary.
But you know, people also have friends, you know, if who are lawyers, so they might not have all the professional sort of.
You don't need, because I know they're on a retainer, so you don't need one. I think
you don't need one.
You don't need one, but these are things that will help you with unraveling,
building up a good, like getting a good foundation and building your way up. I think
if you're by yourself, I think it's just contracts. It's just reading. So lawyers know all about contracts, and they understand the wording, and they understand what that means, and that's all I feel like you need a lawyer for, just to break it down. And I'm talking for people that don't have the support system to help them get through these things. Then also make sure you take care of your well-being, just like, you know, the stuff that they tell you, your skin, your hair. So do that.
teeth.
Also make sure you teeth. Then also make sure that you have somebody that you can talk to that isn't going to judge your you by how much money you make and what you're going through, that can understand some of the struggles that you're going through. And if you don't, there are places that you can call, like BetterHelp, that will help having conversations with you here in the UK. And I know people don't really like to talk about therapy, but these are things, and I know it's a Western world thing. In Africa, it's like, what do you need therapy? Go to your auntie. Which, yes, go to your auntie if you have one. But I think I'm going to go towards people that are starting from the ground zero, don't have anybody to give them this advice. Health, financial literacy, and mental health is the most important thing. Speaking up, if you're in an environment where you feel uncomfortable, speak up, call your agent and tell them what's going on. If you're in an environment where you're happy, call your agent and say you've been amazing and send them flowers. Build relationships with people that you know, friendships. At the end of the day, the people that help you in this industry are people that you meet along the way that have the same, you know, mindset. So make friends, be open to sharing your story, and don't ever feel like you don't belong there. I suppose have that courage and that determination to be yourself.
I think,
be yourself. Yeah.
I
hope that
helps. I say to people that if you make room for yourself in the world makes room, you know, for you. Yeah.
Right.
So where can, because I'm sure loads of young people would be looking for you, and thank you for being an advocate. And I said, as a pioneer, and I love the fact that you said even from the first money you earned, you bought a piece of land to build a school on. So, and actually you now have found yourself. So you do modeling that you love, but you found an outlet to help people. So whether you're helping, you know, those young children in the school, or whether you're helping other Black models by talking about, you know, the challenges in the industry and how actually we all can be represented across board. So where can people find you so that they can?
So my Instagram is my name, Nyasha _Matonhodze. Just screenshot this because it'd be hard to spell, I'm sure. So it's Nyasha _Matonhodze, and there you find I'm also an ambassador for educating, you know, diversity in the fashion industry. If you're a model who wants to model, DM me. I respond all the time to all questions asked as well.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And being so enthusiastic and just wanting to come along and share your journey.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm sure we'll meet again, and
I hope so.
Again. Yes.
Yeah. God bless you.
Thank find me a job. God bless you. All right. God bless you. I'll be your mommy on tour.
Okay.
All right. Our love to your mom and your siblings, your aunts.
Thank you so much.
Your dad. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you for watching. I'm sure a lot of parents who've heard their children have interest in modeling, and young people who are thinking of having it as a career. She's been so open. She shared her journey. She shared the ups. She shared the victories. But she's found her space in the world, and she's doing great work, not only as a model, but advocating for young, or not young, but even Black models across the world. So I thank you again for joining. My name is Lydia Khalil, and I will see you next week.
LCBN television broadcasts 24/7 on UK Freeview Channel 271, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, Apple TV, Google TV, C Love World, LCBNTV.com, Life